Do you consider yourself a subject or a citizen?
I definitely consider myself a subject at the moment because that's the place where we stand legally. But I'm certainly up for everybody being citizens. I quite like the royal family knocking about because they're quite funny, and I think they're certainly capable of being independently wealthy now. We could cut a deal that would have them standing around, but not really have any kind of input into our democratic process. I think, the problem with having the royal family is that you have the class structure written into the absolute fabric, the very base of our our social contract, and you can see that it just rattles down right the way from the top all the way through the whole of society. So, without actually causing anybody physical harm, I'd be up for chopping the top off the top of it.
When should we bomb Iran?
We should bomb Iran when we're quite happy to go around picking up the bits of dead children from the streets. I think it's something that it's very easy to sit in a room and kind of shout rhetoric, but the reality that we see more than ever coming back is what things actually look like. I just think we've done, as a global society, a terrible job of engaging states like Iran. And frankly, trying to face them down just doesn't seem to be doing any good at all. I don't claim to be any expert in international diplomacy, but it's never really done as much good in the past. And if we kind of subscribe to this cock-waggling American culture, all that's going to happen is that we will make the world a more dangerous place. I mean, surely Northern Ireland has become the paradigm for how we should tackle these situations, and that engagement is absolutely the only way in which to move forward. You take any society, as soon as you try to suppress whole areas or people who have very significant beliefs, it doesn't go away. It just never disappears, and it will reappear generations later. So, threatening war it's simply not the way to go.
Can you name, this is more of a trivia question, can you name the owner of The Times, The Sun, Sky News, Sky Sports, MySpace, The London Paper and Fox News?
Well, as a journalist, quite an easy one. That's Rupert Murdoch.
What's not so much the definition of dictatorship, but what does dictatorship as a concept mean to you?
Dictatorship to me means being told what to think, and it isn't just being told how to act, because you need that as a fundamental social contract. But being told what to think about stuff is my feeling of dictatorship.
Is that a live issue, do you think, for the UK, for the contemporary UK?
No, not at all. I think there's an awful lot of free thinking, and I think the way technology is moving, it's an awful lot easier to get your thoughts out to other people than ever before, and I think that's scaring an awful lot of people in power, but it seems to me a very healthy thing to do.
How do you feel about 70% of British people physically living on 1% of British land?
The land disparity, it's a really odd question, because certainly my gut instinct is to say, well, that doesn't make any sense at all. Having 1% of the British population owning 70% of the land, clearly appears not to make any sense at all. But I don't think we've found a way to really tackle that issue. I mean, you can build theoretical constructs about kind of devolving that sort of ownership, but let's face it, we tried it in the 80s with this notion of a fantastic home owning, share owning democracy, and the fact was most people don't want to engage with ownership, collective ownership in those sort of ways. Exactly the same thing happened in Russia, where things were they gave shares out in nationalised utilities to huge swathes of the population, and it ended up in the hands of 0.5% of these immensely rich oligarchs now. So I think it's a figure that on the surface looks terrifying, but I'm more worried about the way that we get out of it rather than just kind of banging on about the statistic.
When you're, and I hope you don't think it's a prying question, but when your personal fortune reaches or exceeds 2 million, what do you intend to spend the rest on?
I don't mind, not thinking about me personally, but I don't mind people getting very wealthy as long as they do something useful with it. And what seems to happen is, unfortunately, the kind of person that you have to be to earn that sort of money to begin with means that you end up not doing tremendously nice things with it. You get weird exceptions like Bill Gates, who I don't hold up as any kind of saintly figure, but at least he does seem to be putting a plan in action to give away a huge amount of his wealth at some rate of knots. But I think frankly, by the time I've earned £2 million, with the way inflation's going, it's not going to be worth that much anyway.
Which country locks up more of its people than Zimbabwe, China, Sudan, Syria, Burma and Saudi Arabia?
That's got to be the US, surely.
Try again.
UK?
UK.
Right, okay. Well, there you go. That's another rather unpleasant Americanism that we've imported.
Certainly.